Hello everyone, it's Tom Smith here, and welcome to episode 5 of Blue Diamond Ranked. This is a series in which we look at the polls that I've posted up on our channel and look at the grades that you have given for various films within Blue Diamond and seeing how they rank up against each other and what average scores they end up with. And today we are going to be looking at the Martial Law series. Now, technically speaking, these were not films made primarily by Blue Diamond filmmakers. However, we have had a heavy hand in all three of them, especially the third one, Reconciliation. These were made by Stark Entertainment, by Patrick Stark. He was the director and writer and kind of creator of this. I eventually was brought on board, and each film we got more and more involved in. But the first one, besides being an actor and an editor later, it was mainly independent of us. However, I still do count it among the Blue Diamond pantheon for that reason. So, looking at the first film, what grade would you give Martial Law? After 12 votes, 8% gave it an A, 58% gave it a B, 25% gave it a C, and then a final 8% gave it a D, with 0% giving it an F. And when we do the math here, Martial Law ends up with an average score of 3.67. Which, honestly, once again, I think that's fairly fair. I think it's not particularly the strongest film. There was a lot of learning going on. I wouldn't say it was not Stark Entertainment's price of loyalty. They had made a few films prior to this, some Dracula movies and stuff like that. So this wasn't quite their first film. However, this would be on the same level as doing, I would say, doing The Shadow of Revenge, or doing a lot of the stuff we did in 2011. So having kind of a score like this doesn't quite surprise me. It definitely isn't. Definitely a lot of things get more comfortable as the film series goes along. And so I say that most people giving it a B, I think, is pretty fair. And then B and C, I think, were probably definitely the most votes I would have expected to see. And that's in the end how it worked out. So honestly, I think Martial Law gets a pretty fair score here. It's a fun film, but not the strongest film. Pretty average, I would say. And then looking at its sequel, Martial Law Insurrection, with 13 votes, 31% gave it an A, 46% gave it a B, and 23% gave it a C, with D and F both getting 0%. And when we do all the math here, the Martial Law Insurrection ends up with an average score of 4.08. Honestly, this would surprise me because, honestly, while making these films and editing them and working on them, I found Insurrection to actually be the biggest chore. I think the story is almost too long. I think it gets a little slow, especially in the middle, and kind of drags on. Whereas I think Martial Law flowed pretty well. I think Insurrection actually slows down too slow. I think there was enough suspense and action spilled out throughout the first one to keep it, even though they are the same length, to keep it flowing better than the second one. However, the acting and a lot of the props and stuff like that were definitely improved. So I think it definitely can see how it got a higher score for that reason. I think the story is pretty good. I'd say it's on the same level as the first one. And I'm not too surprised that it scored pretty well, but I was surprised that it scored that much more above the first one, since I ranked those two actually right next to each other when I did my own ranking of them. All in all, I mean, it's a good film. It's not the best. Definitely still more was being learned. While it did come out in 2018, I mean, it was made in 2013. So it's kind of interesting seeing it in that perspective. And then finally, though, we get to the third film, which is the one we were most heavily involved in, Reconciliation. And with 11 votes, 73% gave it an A, and 27% gave it a B, and no one gave it a C, D, or F. So, when we do the math on that one, Martial Law Reconciliation ends up with an average score of 4.73, which moves it up to second place, right behind The Lost Scene 3, Covert Operations. And then Martial Law Insurrection is down in 11th. And then Martial Law, the first one, is in 14th out of 16 films that we have ranked so far. And honestly, that is really interesting, watching how we go from 11th place to second place between the second and third movies. The second movie, I did do some directing. I did a lot of scenes. I'd say I was about 50% involved in that film. Whereas we're completely involved in the third film. And I think with the third film, with a better camera, I think a really good script, good cast, good acting, everything kind of that had been learned from the first two films were really applied in the third film. And I think that's why it's ranked so much higher, because we really did just knock it out of the ballpark with this one. I mean, I rank it second. This is the first time where there's been a film that has been ranked at the same rank I gave it in my own ranking. Putting Reconciliation in second place, it'll be hard to beat that. It and Lost Scene 3 are pretty high up there. I mean, The Real Business is in third, doing pretty well. But Reconciliation was a really solid film. I really enjoy watching it, even though it's the longest film I've ever worked on, at over 3 hours long. But honestly, it doesn't drag in too many. There's a couple of spots where I think it kind of drags down a little bit, but honestly, it got the balance again the way the first movie did. And I think it does really well on that point of being able to not get you too bored, and it also wraps up the story really well. There are some places where I think it could have been stronger, and I'd love to eventually go and do a whole video on that where I talk about it really should have been more of the character Charlie Porter's story more than Royce O'Connell's story, since Royce was the lead character in the first movie. He was the main guy, and then I think Colton Barnes was the main character in the second movie. So I think Charlie then should have been the main character in the third one and been doing the A plot, whereas I think she's kind of doing the B plot in the third movie. Because it's like each film gets an extra plot. There's kind of just a main plot in the first movie. The second movie, there's an A and B plot. You got Colton running the A plot and Patrick Royce O'Connell running the B plot. And then in the third movie, there's the three storylines that are going. You got the A plot with Royce, you got the B plot with Charlie, and then you got the C plot with Lee Connors. So I think there just needed to mainly be a few changes to make Charlie more the main character, and I think it would have balanced and flowed where the storyline has been about these three main characters, Royce, Colton, and Charlie, and each one of them gets a film where they're the main character. Honestly, outside of that, I really have no complaints about the third movie. I think it does really well. We weren't able to do everything we wanted to do with it. I think there were a couple of spots where we didn't get as many extras. The final battle was supposed to be a lot more epic than it was. So, but with all those issues, we still were able to make a really solid film, and I'm still really proud of it, and still really enjoyed working on it with Patrick Stark, and still really, really want to make Rough Justice, whether that's in a movie form, or if we do it more like The Mandalorian, and do it as a series. I still would really want to come back and revisit the characters of Lee Connors and Stephen Cooper, and continue to build on that universe and kind of show what happens after the fall of the company. But we will see if we are able to do that or not in the future. So, I thank you all for voting. Remember, you can still vote. The scores will update as more votes pour in. And in the next episode, we will be looking at the standalone films. Those will be like Calm Before the Storm, Voyage of the Undead, What You Leave Behind, Hard Goodbyes, A Book by Its Cover, and James Bond Fan Films Are Forever. The 6 standalone movies. And then after that will be the final episode, which will be covering the class projects. And we will see how that all goes out. And then, of course, we will be doing a poll for The Lost Scene 5, since it's about to come out on December 4th. And we will see how it ranks up against the rest of the Lost Scene series and the rest of Blue Diamond's films in general. So, thank you all for voting. And thank you for watching this episode of Blue Diamond Ranked. And we'll see you again in the next episode. Take care, everyone.